very happy to introduce Lynn St-Pierre from Quebec. I know Lynn since 2008 when she came to a French conference in Brittany. We went to the Mont Saint-Michel together, and we have something in common. We both speak French. Lynn is happily married to a dedicated man and servant of the Revelation. She's a mother of 2 and grandmother of 4 beautiful and smart grandchildren. With her husband, they have been hosting a weekly study group since 1999. From 1992 to 2002, Lynn has been taught the teachings by her husband without mentioning their origin. During attending a spiritual seminar in Senegal, she was blessed by the Spirit who touched her heart, and since, she's been involved in many capacities for the Urantia movement around the world. She's the founder of a women group called the Daughters of God, and has been facilitating workshops in many Urantia conferences in the United States, Budapest, Amsterdam, Montreal, and Lima, Peru. With the 3 other Daughters of God, she facilitates women retreats at the foundation for 6 years, and wherever they are called to serve.
Both French, but she speaks better than me. I would like to thank the Education Committee of the Urantia Foundation for having this event, and I extend my gratitude towards Marilyn, Martha, Claire, Joanne for organizing this wonderful global cultural seminar, because I know that it is a lot of work to organize things like this. So I'm very happy that I am here representing Canada, and as well I am very happy of having other cultures, brothers and sisters from other countries where we can learn from them. In my presentation, you will hear about modern religion, prevailing belief, attitude towards religion and spirituality, organized religion, personal religion, evolution of culture, importance of the family, the values of the women in Canada, importance of philosophy, the value of the hearts, the importance of the education, the political nature, freedom of speech, and languages spoken in Canada, the province of Quebec as a distinct society, and I will conclude with how the Urantia Book, Le Livre d'Urantia, is prevailing in Canada and in the province of Quebec. So this is our beautiful Canada. All of this is Canada. Where is the stick?
On the side.
Ah, voilà. This is all Canada, and it is the second largest country in the world after Russia. There are 10 provinces, and there are also Northwest Territories where the Eskimos live here, and Yukon. So from east to west, you have 6 time zones. 6 time zones, yes. Canada is a very large country, but it has 37 million of population only. 8 million in Quebec, in this very, very large space here. English and French are official languages in Canada. And it is the size, Quebec is the size of, for people that like figures like you, Eugene, 1,667,000 kilometers, square kilometers. It's 3 times the superficie of France in itself. It is big, right? Next one. Okay. Canada has no official religion, and support for religious pluralism and freedom of religion is an important part of Canada's political culture. Canadians are measurably religious people, according to the 2011 National Household Survey. About 76% of Canadians either claim some sort of religious identity or consider themselves member of a specific church denomination. A 2017 Angus Reid poll similarly found solid majorities of Canadians claiming to believe in a fundamental religious concepts like the existence of God, divine intervention, and heaven. Though most Canadian and Christians, rising immigration from countries outside Europe has seen Canada grow far more religiously diverse in recent decades. While many Canadians may be personally religious, most also respect the principle of secularism. Secularism, yes. Or keeping one's faith a mostly personal thing, private matter. Because Canadians have so many distinct and often conflicting thoughts about God and religious morality, learning to respect the faith of others while still honoring your own has long been a vital part of maintaining peaceful, cooperative country. Religion in Canada encompasses a wide range of group belief. Christianity is the largest religion in Canada, with Roman Catholics having the most adherents, but rates of religious adherence are steadily decreasing. With Christianity in decline, after once been central and integral in Canadian culture and daily life, Canada has become a post-Christian, secular state, despite the majority of Canadian claiming an affiliation with Christianity. The majority of Canadians consider religion to be unimportant in their daily lives, but still believe in God. The practice of religion is now generally considered a private matter throughout society and the state. As you can see on the graphic here, we have like 38.8% of Roman Catholic, Protestant 20%, other Christians here 6.5. We have a community of Muslims, 3.2%. We have Orthodox, 1.6%. Hindu, 1.5%. Sikh, 1.4%. Buddhist, and other denomination. A survey of 2017 shows that religious beliefs are in continuous decline for almost 20 years. 1 in 2 Canadians say that their religious beliefs are important to them. The least religious reside in Quebec and British Columbia, 43%. The most religious are in Alberta and Atlantic provinces, for 56%. Religious belief seems more a case of cultural heritage than an expression of a sustained practice of worship. As such, the difference between believing God and religious beliefs is telling. People feel less need to go to a church, which explain why the churches are empty now. While Canadians say they believe in God, the percentage has been in continuous decline. A similar trend obtains for religious beliefs. The number who tell us that religion is important to them have dropped from 70% of the population in 2000 to 49% in 2017. And this is how I see also that why there are so many spiritual seminars all over, and seminars that would attract mostly women, which, you know, they feel that they need to connect as a group, to have a sense and a purpose in their lives. And I think that these seminars are a door to offer them something extra, which could be, you know, eventually the Urantia Book. There are 12 different organized religions in Canada, with Christian denomination having the larger group of followers. As of 2011 census, the Roman Catholic dominate the religious landscape by 39%, followed by Protestant denomination that includes the United Church of Canada, the Anglican, Baptist, Lutheran, and Presbyterian Church. The stark increase in immigration from areas such as Asia, Africa, and the Middle East has contributed to the expansive growth of Muslim, Buddhist, Sikh, and Hindu communities within the country of Canada. More exclusive religious cultures, also called Canada home, include the Baha'i faith, Unitarian Universalist, Judaism, pagans, and First Nations religions. We also see a small rise in beliefs such as reincarnation from the Buddhism faith, and shamanism mostly taken its origin from the First Nation people. In Canada, for people not adhering to the concept of God as seen in organized religions, tend to construct their own image of God. He is more for them like a guardian angel, an old man with a long white beard. 2 out of 5 Canadians believe in their own image of God. Only 1 of 5 Canadians believe in the God of the Church, and 1 in 7 in Quebec. On the other hand, a belief in a force that connects us to nature, the cosmos, the universe, is one of the strongest rising trends. We are witnessing a depersonalization of the divine adherence. As we are examining people values, it helps us better understand why the God of the churches is taking such a beating in popular beliefs. Those who believe in a traditional deity have very traditional and very conservative values. They respect the authority of institution, they are fatalistic, have little control over their lives, and turn to God for leadership. Those who construct their own personal God have difficulty living with the complexity and uncertainties of today's world. Their God becomes a kind of guardian angel who watches over them. Over the years, the notion of God has exploded into a myriad of different forms, culturally better adapted on the times. It is difficult to measure the exact degree of faithlessness in Canada. Many of those who consider themselves non-religious may still believe in God, or even the teaching of a specific faith, but simply never attend a church. Likewise, many Canadians who do consider themselves religious may do so primarily for cultural or identity reasons and not actually respect or follow any of the rules of their supposed faith in their day-to-day lives. There are also those who claim the label of agnostic. Atheist and agnostic community tends to be dominated by Canadians from Christian backgrounds. Canada is one of the world's most sparsely populated countries. While Canadians are comparatively few in number, 37 million, however, they have crafted what many observers consider to be a model multicultural society, welcoming immigrant populations from every other continent. Canada is the first country in the world to adopt a policy of multiculturalism, embracing diversity and pluralism. Today, of Canada's total population of more than 37 million, a fifth are immigrants. Canada's population has tripled since 1940, growing from 11 million to over 37 million. Canada is home to people of over 200 origins. In Canada society, family life is very important, and for many past generations, certain values to promote better quality in family have been predominant not only in many government programs, but also in the literature available to help young families organize and maintain good and healthy environment for their children. We have witnesses in the last few decades an increase in government initiative to provide quality education for all children. There has also been an increase of different services provided to families to provide better health care to children. The main values that are now at the forefront of Canadian family for the future of their children are self-respect, respecting others, politeness and etiquette, responsibilities, honesty and trust, education, healthcare, safe and healthy environment. Grandparents are now having an important role in the education and welfare of their grandchildren. In the space of few generations, the nature and life transition continue to change. Canadians are marrying at an older age. The average age for first marriage is 29 for women and 31 for men. Projection estimates about 35 to 42% of marriage ends in divorce. The average age of mothers at the birth of their first child in 2011 was 28 years and a half, up from 26.2 years in 1994. So we see that women decide to have their children later on. The average age of first-time mothers is increasing, many of whom have decided to establish careers before having children. There has also been change in how families are managing life transition. While family size is shrinking and women are therefore taking fewer maternity leaves, men are increasingly likely to report taking paternity leave. 12.2% in Canada, especially in Quebec, 83%. Families in Canada are increasingly diverse because Canadians come from all parts of the world. There is no typical Canadian family, but many varieties and many views about families. Today, there are more than 9.4 million families in Canada, of many different types, such as nuclear family, extended family, common law family, single-parent family, same-sex couple family, blended family, and reconstituted family and foster family. So, many families, right? Many kinds of family. Most children are raised by their biological parents, but there are currently more than 30,000 children being raised by their grandparents. Another 30,000 are being raised by foster families, and there are more than 460,000 blended families in Canada. Now, this was in the last census, which is in 2011, and these census are done every 10 years. So the next one will be in 2021, but I'm sure that the figures will just rise up, that's for sure. Common law couples are on the rise, now accounting for 17% of all census family in Canada and 32% in the province of Quebec. Same-sex marriage was legalized across the country in 2005, contributing to the diversity of families in Canada. Family life is well valued by Canadians and is reflected in our government by the existence of its Minister of Family, who looks after the promotion of family well-being. It is also reflected in many of the television network programs. Canada history has been shaped by countless determined women who work to promote and uphold gender equality in Canada. Women champion a number of important human rights that have become core Canadian values. The right to vote in provincial and federal elections, the right to own property, the right to earn a fair wage, the right to be recognized as persons. Before 1867, women in Canada were not recognized as persons. Now they can decide on their education and they can take decisions equally in their couple. Women are now protected from discrimination on the grounds of gender, age, marital status, and more by Canadian Human Rights Act. However, violence against women still exists, and particularly in the First Nation population. The last official report of the RCMP, which is our federal police, published in 2014, reported 1,181 cases of missing and murdered Aboriginal women and girls between 1980 and 2012. Canadian women continue to be dramatically overrepresented in certain historically and stereotypically female professions, such as teaching, nursing, waitressing, and dramatically underrepresented in stereotypically male jobs. A woman is entitled to have a leave of absence or maternity leave up to 12 months to take care of her child during and after the pregnancy, so-called maternity leave. And it is against the law for employers to discriminate against or punish a female on the basis of being pregnant. Women get more education than years ago. As of 2015, 35% of Canadian women had a university certificate or a degree, compared to 30% of men. In Canada, the percentage of women who have completed a post-secondary education, 70%, was higher than that of men, 65%. There are two major cultures in Canada, both the products of their colonial origin, English and French. Both of these cultures have to this day been a major influence in the educational system of English and French Canada, which occupies different geographical regions of the country. As you recall, at the right, Quebec is mostly French, the rest of Canada, English. However, there is 8 million French-speaking people across Canada, but the most of it is Quebec. Both cultures and their educational systems have been evolving a bit differently and mostly depended on their distinctive religious faith and ideology. English Canada by the Anglican and Protestant Church, and French Canada by the Catholic Church. But for many years now, and since the 1960s, the educational system has been going through major fundamental changes in how it operates. It has progressively moved toward secularism, but the Constitution of Canada provides constitutional protections for some types of publicly funded religious-based and language-based school systems. Education is compulsory up to the age of 16 years old. Canada has a strong and well-funded system of public education, largely managed provincially. Consequently, some aspect of the education system can vary between provinces. However, as education is overseen by the federal government, the standard of education remains consistently high throughout the country. There is both a public and private education in Canada. Colleges in English and French Canada are usually technical, applied arts, or applied science schools that provide graduates with vocational certificates, diplomas, and associate degrees. While courses in diversity of religion is still available in many school systems across the country, It has in many places been replaced by morality and ethics basis. As for philosophy, there is in the Quebec educational system at the elementary level an initiative to teach young students practical philosophy, focus on the ability of argumentation to develop critical thinking. Philosophy courses are also available in colleges and university curriculum and is gradually gaining interest in younger generation. Thank you, it gives me a little break, Gabrielle. Okay. In Canada, there has been an increasing interest in philosophy over the last century. The study and teaching of philosophy in Canada date from the time of New France in 1665. There has since developed no particular Canadian school of philosophy. Rather, Canadian philosophers have reflected particular views of established European and later American schools of philosophical thought. Since the mid-20th century, the depth and scope of philosophical activity in Canada have increased dramatically. With the advent and growth of social media in many levels of society, and its influence on the younger generation, there have been some efforts in society throughout the educational system, television programs, newspaper, the arts, and many professional writers to emphasize the importance of developing critical thinking. Not only the interest of philosophy is constrained to religion or metaphysics, it is also widely used in healthcare, sociology, science, politics, and in some measure in the economic sector. There is an ongoing search in a Canadian society at many levels of expression for harmony, balance, and a sense of purpose, and it is strongly reflected in our laws, politics, healthcare, and educational system, and in some ways in the diverse economic sectors. We could attribute this search for meanings to the present challenges that climate changes, pollution, rise of populist movement, poverty, mass migration, terrorism, and the ongoing discoveries of science and the unmasking of multiple abuses perpetrated by people in religious or political authority. All these many challenges open many debates in the Canadian society that are regularly discussed on television, newspaper, and amongst the population at large. While Canadians spend a lot of time playing sports and having adventures in the great outdoors, they also spend a lot of time sitting in front of the TV. The typical Canadian is said to watch an average of 27 hours of television a week. Yes. The present older segment of the population enjoys more leisure time than their forebears. This is true of all those who have retired from work. A lot of their time is devoted to travel, and these are the activities that occupy their time while traveling. Much like U.S. residents, their favorite are sightseeing, shopping, going to the beach, and so on. And there's also, live theater, museum, nightclubs, art galleries, and amusement park where people go. The young value their leisure time more than the middle-aged working population. To them, leisure is very important and is a natural part of their life. They usually involve their leisure time in sporting activities, outdoor activities, such as camping, hiking, swimming, skiing, fishing. They also spend some of their time watching movies, dancing, and video games. Not enough time is given to reading, but there is a concerted effort from the government to promote reading as a pleasurable activity. As for the middle-aged segment of the population, much of its time is devoted to work and family life. Since the early 1970s, there has been an ongoing research done at many universities to study the effect of leisure on the Canadian society. And today, we see 165 universities that have programs and classes on leisure. The domain of art in Canada has enjoyed for many years a wide spectrum of expression in many sectors in society. The arts are how we speak to each other across our vast geography. Our arts and cultural organization express the Canadian values of diversity, tolerance, and multiculturalism. They are a critical building block as Canadian children build, share citizenship, and understand one another. 9 in 10 Canadians believe they get personal benefits out of attending professional performing arts. 92% of Canadians believe the arts and culture make a community a better place to live. 92% of Canadians believe the arts experience are a valuable way of bringing together people from different languages and cultural traditions. Canadians volunteer 97 million hours for arts and culture organization in 2010. This is the equivalent to about 51,000 full-time, full-year job. Canadians believe that the presentation of performing arts brings energy and vitality to communities, improve quality of life and well-being of residents, make communities more creative, and fosters a stronger sense of pride and identity. Political nature in my country, it's not always that rosy, right? We thought it was a nice picture. The political landscape of Canada has progressed since the last World War. Canadians enjoy a country where democracy is well and alive. Like many other countries in the world, it faces many great challenges in areas of immigration, cultural diversity, economy stability, environmental impact on climate change, and many other areas that might threaten its democracy. It strives to be an example of multiculturalism and openness in a world where diversity of races, cultures, and religion are often used to polarize and divide population for political gains, as many other countries. Canada is a parliamentary democracy headed by a prime minister. It is also a constitutional monarchy with executive authority vested in the Queen. This means that the Queen is the head of the state, while the Prime Minister is the head of government. A parliamentary democracy has 3 parts: the sovereign, the Queen, the Senate, and the House of Commons. Meanwhile, the government has 3 levels: federal, provincial, and municipal. The federal government is headed by the Prime Minister. Provincial and territorial governments are headed by premiers, while municipal governments are led by mayors. Canadians generally take their constitutionally protected right to free expression very seriously, but the privilege is not an absolute one. Canada's Charters of Rights and Freedom allows reasonable limits to be placed on most civil rights, and over the years the government has used this authority to pass some legal limits on freedom of speech. It has relatively uncontroversial laws that forbid spreading deliberate, malicious lies about other people, known as slander or libel, as well as copying or attempting to profit from other people's idea, copyright infringement. It is also generally against the law to use speech to encourage, advise, or provoke the committing of crimes. Canada has a hate speech laws that make it a crime to publicly incite hatred against any identifiable group, such as racial, religious, or sexual minorities, through written statements or other forms of media. Languages spoken in Canada. As you can see here, there's a large part of English-speaking people, which is almost half of the pie, a little bit more of that, close to 60%. And then you have 22% that is French, and other languages you have Punjabi, Italian, Spanish, German, Cantonese, Tagalog, Arabic, and other is 1.1. So there's a large diversity of languages that are spoken in Canada. There are also 11 Aboriginal languages. Only a few are spoken by enough people to ensure that they are safe from extinction. Distinct society. The English, the French. This is our inheritance, right? Yeah. Regionalism among provincial governments is probably most obvious in Quebec. The culture of a French-speaking Roman Catholic people were once defended by the local community, by a variety of nationalistic societies, and above all by the Roman Catholic Church. For some, the clearest defense of Francophone culture was a rural life and a high birth rate. And from this perspective, the provincial government could do little more than encourage colonization. In recent times, however, the government has assumed the defense of culture. Many French-speaking Quebecois have concentrated on increasing the political power of the Quebec government. The protection of the French language, a central element of the regional variety of Canada, has become a political issue dependent on different conceptions of federal and provincial responsibilities. Proposed changes to the Canadian Constitution included adding the phrase distinct society to the Constitution Act in 1867 to recognize the uniqueness of Quebec as compared with the rest of Canada. So this is the end of the presentation for this part. Now, what I could say about the Urantia Book and its teaching in Canada, as you can see, it is a very large country. It's very large, and we know that the book is distributed all through Canada. It is in bookstores. It's really available through internet. We have internet very easily in Canada as well. Now, what I would like to talk more about is where I live in Quebec, because this is where I live, and this is where I serve, and this is where the Urantia Book readers that I come to Quebec, you know, they have a place, and it's in Sainte-Sophie. So, in Quebec, we have an association for more than 20 years. And there's approximately between 75 to 100 members. Members are people that pay a due each year to become a member. There are thousands of readers in the province of Quebec because they have been selling over between 8,000 and 10,000 books, I believe, in Quebec. I don't know if Tamara is around here, more or less.
I think we sold 650 last year.
Right. So year after year, we sell a lot of books, French books, in the province of Quebec. And I don't know where are these readers. There are thousands of them. Where are they? If you see me on the screen, just show you. The promotion and creation of study groups is probably one of the best ways to promote and disseminate the Urantia Book in Quebec and also in Canada. The participation of the foundation in as many book fairs as possible is another way to promote the Urantia Book. A few years back, the foundation had representative in Quebec where there were people who had an office representing the foundation, and the Association Urantia du Québec would subsidize this as a project where they would be going in book fairs, in 8 book fairs in the province of Quebec. And the province would subsidize, and the association would subsidize them to be there. Each year for probably 6-7 years we did this. Now, what happened is that since it's only the editor that are in our book shows, we cannot, as a member of an association or even as a reader, to present ourselves even if we want to have a booth. So we cannot be there, and we wish to be there because we want to promote the Urantia Book in French and English and Spanish and Portuguese and all the languages. This is really something that we want to do, but we cannot because we are not editor. And previously, the representative would represent the foundation as the editor. So this would be a great step to be present and more alive into the, you know, in making the Urantia Book more available, because I see now also in the province of Quebec that there are many therapists that do use the Urantia Book as some kind of healing thing. They do. And I know this because there was people who would call me and they would say, what is the Urantia Book? And of course I would question them to know why they are calling me, where did they get my number, who gave them my name, and to finally understand that it was the therapist who was using the principle of the Urantia Book to work with these people, which I thought was fantastic. Will they be readers? We don't know, but they wanted a book. And so, you know, this is really interesting. Another thing would be that support and promotion of unity among the diverse organization. Promoting the Urantia Book is vital to its adoption by new readers and its promotion by regular readers. Support and cooperation with existing fraternal organization is helping in establishing an environment of trust, credibility, respect, and unity. Like other countries that did mention that they would like to go on television, we would never want to do this, because too much visibility in the media could attract, you know, undue interest in public media that thrive on controversy. Because then they go into the Urantia Book and they would find just like a sentence without all the context, and they would just hit us. We don't want to go on radio or television.
This is just a thought that came to me when you were speaking, and you talked about, we were talking about the philosophy in Canada, or studying philosophy. You're talking about the importance of developing critical thinking, and there have been lots of comments about education, and I think that's such a piece to highlight, because the purpose of the book, as stated in the foreword, is, again, it's expanding cosmic consciousness and enhancing spiritual perception. And we need critical thinking to do that. It's mandatory, or it won't happen. And I think the focus on education, not just education, but education that supports and mandates to a degree.
He's a young man. He's in his 50s. He's a young man, and he brought to this to the culture, the French culture, this thing of having kids that are 6 years old, 7 years old, and bring them together in a classroom and discuss with them and have those kind of critical thoughts, you know, amongst them. And it's just beautiful. It's just beautiful. So the government saw that, pick on it, and, you know, it's now living, and it's wonderful. And I know that in the past, college, but college, not university, because college is not considered as university. We have colleges, we have elementary, secondary, college, and then university in Quebec. But in college, this is where they started the course in philosophy. And at the beginning, they thought it was boring, you know, like 25 years ago, 30 years ago. But now, it's really, really different, really different. The students appreciate the debates. It's all about education.
Can you spell his name?
Yes, Frédéric Lenoir.
Thank you so much. You spoke a little bit about indigenous people. So in Israel, we have the Palestinians. In Canada, we have the First Nations people. Could you speak a little more? Because I think Canada's been pretty progressive. They didn't receive citizenship until 1960. Australia, they didn't receive citizenship till the 70s. But can you speak about the progressive relationship of the First Nations people, of indigenous people, to the colonial people who have conquered them?
Oh la la. It's a hard subject, this, Gard, because we know that the church ruled for so long all across Quebec and also some parts of Canada. And what they did is that they took indigenous kids when they were 6, 7, 8 years old, got them out of their family because they wanted for them not to speak their language anymore. So they would take them from their family, they would try to inculturate them in the Catholic religion. And they were abused, molested, sexually abused. And up to this day, you know, it's very, very hard for all those people in the communities, in the First Nation communities, to live a normal life. Because when you have been kept abused, first of all, you don't see your parents anymore. You were taken from your parents. They stole you from your parents, literally. And they tried to do a little Québécois or a little Ontario or a little Manitoban. And all the abuses. This was terrible. And up to this day, you know, in my presentation, I really wanted to mention this small part of those women that are still being abused and beaten. And you know, it says 1,800 women, but I'm sure that there are like, the amount is tripled than that. And mostly not only by their spouses, but by white men. It's really terrible. There are some progress. There are some healing and transformation among the community. But you know, when you have been so badly hurt, it takes a while. It really takes a while.
So my question is, I have two questions. First of all, what do you think are the challenges that are facing you right now in furthering the dissemination of the Urantia Book and Canada in general? My second question, okay, just let's answer that first.
Okay. Well, Canada, first of all, we need good leaders. That's the challenge. There are a lot of readers, but there are no commitments, like you mentioned previously, Sandra, in one of your presentations.
So could you elaborate on that? What are the number of readers that you know of? And
Okay. I will talk about Quebec.
Okay.
Okay. In Quebec, we have a database of maybe 400 names, and out of them, I might know half of them personally. And we are just a little bunch of people that are really dedicated to the revelation. It's always the same core group that are doing things. So the challenge is we need to have more committed readers to do something, to want to get involved in a study group. Even in study group, we have presently 8 study groups in the province of Quebec, which is probably really good because we are 8 million in the province of Quebec, when maybe in the state of New York, I don't know how many people there are in New York, 7 million, and how many study groups, you know, so. So I think it's really not a bad figure, but it could be much better, really, since we are doing virtual study group as well. In our study group, we are 11 around the dining table, but we have 5, 6, 7 people on Zoom as well that are from all over the place.
So what do you look for generally in a leader? Maybe some people would be watching you right now and they would be, you never know.
Well, maybe somebody with ideas and somebody that wants to do something. You know, if you have the heart to do something, at a certain point your leadership, some of them are born leaders, but some of them will develop their leadership. And this is the thing, we have good people in Quebec, but they just don't want to take the pole.
Okay. And situation in English-speaking Canada? Thank you.
Well, I believe it's the same thing. The leadership is lacking there. It's coming to do some little things, you know, but there's a lot of readers in Canadian English Canada.
So in Quebec, it's bigger than that in English?
I don't know.
I hope I can. I got a few questions. I hope I can remember all of them. But you were talking about women, not, I don't know if I got it right, a person before. What year was that again?
Well, it was in the 1700s and 1800s.
On the 1700s.
But until 1867.
Okay.
1867.
But I know that in the United States, the women cannot vote until 19-something, right? So they don't have too much right to. Another thing also is, have you done any work in the First Nation in terms of propagating, or do you have any plan? Or people who have called you that comes from that nation?
Not at all. Not at all. But you know, with the cultural seminar, it opened my mind because they are, you know, in different countries and different approaches. And while I was thinking about the First Nation women. But to present the book itself, I'm not the person to do that. I would like to probably, you know, have a different approach in spirituality, because there are a lot in the, what's the religion? Animistic, and so I could approach them in another sense.
If I remember somewhere.
Thanks.
I'm kind of picking up on the question that Gard asked in terms of First Nations, but also we all have the equivalent of a First Nation. Mm-hmm. And you know, the way in which we generalize and we assume this about the entire group. So I think that those are, you know, two parallel tracks that we're dealing with all the time, individually with people, but also how we see the group. And I think it's a question, I don't have an answer, and I'm not asking you to come up with an answer. I'm asking you to comment on how you might see it in Canada. But how do we open our eyes to how that may live in us? And how do we integrate these teachings in a way in us that we no longer carry it? Because I think we all grow up carrying unconsciously our own prejudices. So how do we collectively and individually work on changing that?
This is a really good question, Marta, and it's a matter, like you said, you know, we need to transform ourselves first and leave aside all our prejudice, our misconceptions, and it's a work in progress. It is a work in progress.
Just a point of information, since people were asking about English speaking. Some of us here are members of the fellowship and have gotten to be very good friends with people we love very much from. There really isn't across the aisle anymore, I don't think. We've all tried really hard to be loving to one another, and there's been a lot of interaction, but the every third year international conference that the fellowship puts on in 2020 is a co-sponsored, and Gaetan, you're on that committee, I think, is co-sponsored by the UA Canada and, is that how I say it? Yeah. And the
UAC.
fellowship, and it'll be in
UAC.
Vancouver. So the two major organizations are not just getting along, we're doing things together.
Yes, thank you. As a matter of fact, David, I am on the council. Oh, yes.
Your presentation was wonderful, and so thank you. I just, in a country with two major languages and as big as yours, I just wanted to know a little bit more about the organization, the association has in Canada. So do we have an association on the French side, one association on the English side? If we have both, are both national associations? How we see that? How it works in Canada?
Well, like I said, our association, local association, has been alive for 20 years, Association Urantia du Québec. But before this, there was an association which had like probably as many readers that there are there today, but all of these readers are gone because they are old and they're not alive anymore. So, new readers. We have an association in Quebec, and we could have English-speaking people, but once we had an English reader that called me, and I was so excited, and I said, "You are English?" And he tried to be very nice with me, and he spoke French, so I decided to switch into French. And he said that he was reading the book online, and I offered him if he would like to be part of our study group, just to have a feel, on Zoom. And he accepted, and he was there for at least 2 months, and then he just wrote me a little note and say, "Well, then it's not for me. Thank you, goodbye." So be it. But mostly our organization is with French-speaking people in Quebec. We have a woman that is in Yukon, which is really northwest completely from Canada. This is an English sector, but she speaks French. So she's part of our association because she speaks French. She wants to be with us. And she receives all the monthly newsletters and whatever we do publish. She's aware of what we're doing in Quebec. It's not a matter of English or French. It's just because it's French and we're dealing with French people. So we have an association. Like I mentioned, we have 75 members, but so many, few hundreds readers in our database that we don't see very often. And every year we have 2 to 3 days workshop, 1-day workshop. So we invite people of our local association, and even if they're not from the association and they are a presenter, we will invite them to present on a topic in the morning. And in the afternoon, we have round tables, and we will discuss of this subject. So 2 to 3 times a year, we do this on a specific topic. Then also this year, we are organizing a small conference, a 2-day conference. And the subject is on the Supreme. And it will attract maybe 100 people, maybe less, coming from Quebec, maybe some from outside. And the English Canada, they do their thing. We are at the east of Canada, and the English Association is completely at the west. Of course, we speak from time to time on Zoom, but we are Both of us are independent. We could be a national because we have more than 30 members. They are really a very small group. I don't know right now if they have that amount of readers to make an association, but there is an association there.
So in Canada, there is no national.
Yes, there is a national, which is in the West as well.
Oh, okay, it's on the English side.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your presentation, Lynn. I have a question that I want to ask you. A few years before, me and my wife, we were in Canada. We was in this conference, this beautiful conference in Quebec. So, and the members of your association, they hosted us for some times,
Yes.
as I remember. And the matter is that we saw this beautiful catalog. I mean, Canadian people, when they don't work anymore, they have a choose where they want to serve.
Oh, yes, yes.
Yes. Can you tell me more about this? Because it is a really beautiful example of serving to the community.
I had forgot about that, Anton. You probably saw this. It's a book that has all the associations in which you can serve. So, you know, it's a thick one. And you probably saw it at Robert Ezri's place.
Yes, yes. It's not a Urantia association.
No, no.
It's a community organization. Some way you can give your time and your efforts to somebody else.
Yeah, you know, Anton, I had forgot about that one because my time is pretty much taken by Urantia.
Yes.
So I don't have time to look into that catalog and see where should I be serving.
No, that's only for me. It is like example of what Canadians can do when they have a free time, leisure time.
Yeah.
So it's
Very absolutely.
And another thing interesting for me about the Canada, you know, around the world in some places quite popular is such experiments when people have and government started programs of free income. So they donate, they take some part of the population, I don't know, and they sponsor them for the free money, and it is a basic income program. Maybe somebody knew about this. So I found information that it was 4,000 people in Ontario who was sponsored by this free money, and they can do whatever they want. I mean, they can go to the work, they can be at home. So they have free time, free leisure time that they can do whatever they want. So maybe you know something, and it's a dream for some Urantia people who want to have such help to do Urantia type of service. You know?
Well, I'm in awe because I'm not aware of this thing. You found this in Ontario?
Yes, it is called the basic income.
Basic income, okay. Was not aware.
In Alaska, like rising experiments, experimental programs.
And it's called basic income.
Yes, basic income.
Okay. One more question?
Thank you for the presentation. Two questions. One, a big country, 39 million. Why? Second is immigrants. So many, right? Do they, for example, we have Mark here trying to, yeah. Do they have any influence? Can they have influence once they go there? Can they have influence onto the cultures of a given area they are in, for example, bringing their belief systems, how easy is it for them to practice or do whatever they, yeah.
Do you see an increasing of Muslim people in our country right now and in Quebec? And of course, you know, a lot of radicals are there, and they want to impose their views. So there is right now in the province of Quebec a project on thank you. And it's very difficult because some just want to have it and some others don't want to have it. But you know, you saw the chart there. There are many religions. People do live their own faith very easily. It's normally peaceful in our country. That's why there are so many immigrants in Canada. But we need to have laws that will secure that peace. Mm-hmm.
Have you figured out the average age of the readers? Because I know that seems to be one of the problems.
The average is about your color, the color of your hair. And this is another challenge that we have, is to find new readers. Really, we need to find new readers, but young readers. Very, very few readers that are young.
Do you have any program for the youth, though?
Oh la la, this is also very complicated. There were few youth, young people, young men that did contact us. They want to help us, but they want to help us and get paid. And well, we tell them it's voluntary work. So.
I really appreciate that Canada has a lot of progress in terms of especially of women, you know, participation and everything. While you were talking and some people were discussing it, it came to my mind also that, you know, I'm learning a lot because in order for the Urantia to become more universal, I was thinking of having contacts with even the Muslim, you know, progressive Muslim population. Right now, the Urantia study group in the Philippines, the division that I can see is more of the class. Mm-hmm. You got the upper class, the middle class, and lower class. As I said before, we have 2 unemployed in the Urantia, but and actually we are subsidizing just their, you know, going to the meeting. I mean, that's all, you know, we're not paying them. But if you don't give them, you know, they cannot come. Yeah. So that's what I was thinking to maybe in the future, at least in our case, to have representation on all of these, to be consciously these people represented. Because sometimes if you're just coming from one sector, even one class, you only have that point of view. Okay, so I was just thinking like even in Israel, you know, maybe it would be a good idea to really search for Palestinian, you know, because, you know, they have their own point of view, so that there'll be a point of discussion.
Yes.
Even in the U.S., you know, why are there not too many blacks? I'm not criticizing, it's just an observation. Maybe there's something there that, you know, we have to look at, and maybe to get a, you know, something to
Yes,
study,
yes.
you know, because we would like it to be inclusive.
Yes.
So that's all I would like to comment and.
Yes, thank you.
Like
Thank you, Eugene.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Lynn, for your beautiful presentation.
Merci, Claire. Merci.